again, I cannot reiterate how grateful and thankful we are as an organization that you've decided to spend your time and talent with us and our diverse group of stakeholders today.
Thank you.
At the outset, I would like to say to the audience that there's no way that we're going to be able to get to all of the questions you have submitted. We anticipated this, and I want to answer a question and then lead into the first question for Dr. DiAngelo. I've been getting a lot of questions as to if the slides are available or the recordings available. This is Dr. DiAngelo's intellectual property. We don't have permission to record or share her content. So I just want to get that out. And that actually leads me into my first question. And we talked a little bit about this yesterday. Could you speak to the choice of words that were used in this Coca-Cola training from a slide deck that has been shared in the news and on social media? I know you and I talked a little bit about this yesterday, and that was one of the very first questions that we got today.
Yeah, and I appreciate you giving me the opportunity. I'm hoping that you notice that the slides that Coca-Cola was showing, you don't see that in my slide deck because I did not create those slides. And so I'm quite distressed about it. I did a short promotional video a couple of years back when my book first came out. It was on the internet, and LinkedIn took it and then made slides to capture my talking points. And I would have to say was someone who didn't fundamentally understand my talking points, and then sold that as training. So this is problematic on several levels because they did not have my permission, and it doesn't represent my work. And then we go to Coca-Cola and say, how can you consider these short videos to be training? What kind of commitment that you don't bring people in to actually do trainings? And now, of course, the hate campaign is on me and the death threats and so forth. So it's just a big bummer. Let me say what I mean. The one thing that they're really responding to is when I say less white. And again, they took it out of context. But what I opened by saying I'm white. And that is a particular position in the world. We are socialized in particular ways. My life trajectory went in a particular direction because I'm white, in the same way that I was assigned female gender. And so my socialization was set in a particular trajectory. These categories shape how we get raised and socialized. And so as a white person, I was raised to be ignorant about race. I just think that's fair to say. We are not taught in any depth to understand racism in this country. I was raised to be arrogant about my ignorance. I was raised to have an opinion, but not have it be informed. I was raised to have internalized a sense of superiority. At the same time, I could never admit to it. I was raised to see racism as simple terms, good people versus bad people. Right? I think it's fair to say these things. And so I try to be less white. And I mean that in less of the ways that being white is oppressive, right? So I try to be more educated, more compassionate, more self-aware, more humble, more open. It'd be similar if we were talking about toxic masculinity. I think it's fair to say that there is a script for men that we could say is not the healthiest script. It's not the only script, but it's a pretty major script. And so how can men perform manhood in a less oppressive way, right? So if I said that, I wouldn't be saying, don't be a man, men are bad, but I might say, be less of that kind of a man. And if it doesn't apply to you, if you don't think you're that kind of a man or that kind of white person, why get defensive? But it certainly makes a great soundbite to compare it to, oh, well, be less black would be wrong. So is that a context? And thank you for letting me clarify.
No problem. The next question, and you touched on it a bit in your presentation, is around this consciousness of racism and the normalizing of it in white culture and the normalizing it in organizational settings. Could you speak a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, it is the status quo. It is the default. And so it's in our institutions, right? It would be an absolute anomaly not to be. It would be an institution that was created with an anti-racist mission infused. That would be a brand new institution in that case. So for me as a white person, I was set up to think about whether or not I'm racist as an either or, right? And so the question would be, are you racist? And what would be the answer? No. And if the answer is no, then what further action is required from me? None. I'm not racist. When we understand systemic racism, that question changes to how have I been shaped by racism? And how am I enacting it? I'm not enacting it like white nationalists enact it. I'm not a white nationalist, but I still play a part. And so in the workplace, what are our outcomes, right? What are our policies and practices? Are they reproducing inequality? Ibram X. Kendi would say, if they are, and mostly they are, then they are racist, because if all people are truly equal, only racial discrimination can be the explainer. Let me put it this way. I think everyone recognizes that by every measure across every institution, Black people are at the bottom, Black and brown people are at the bottom, white people are at the top. So there's only two overall ways to explain that. Black and brown people are inferior, white people are superior, okay? Or systemic racism. And if you aren't using systemic racism to make sense of that, let's be honest, you're using racist lens to make sense of that. So let's look at our institutions and the outcomes and address them. Again, if we had more time, I have a list of what organizations can do, but all that information is out there. 2021 is an amazing time for access to really good information on how to enact or look at your policies. Oh, you're mute.
You would think after a year I would have had this down by now, so I apologize. But I'm paraphrasing with this question. This really revolves around this guilt by white guilt by associated with white skin, right? So I guess the question is, how do white folks who want to be allies in this work not be I guess demonized by having white skin? And then how do we bring folks along? And sometimes terms like white supremacy are not commonly accepted by white folks, and it doesn't help bring them along in terms of being allies to this work. Can you speak a little bit to that?
Sure. So I think it should be clear. I always try to include myself in everything that I say, right? So I'm clear. I've been thoroughly conditioned into white superiority. And I think it should be also clear, I'm a fairly empowered person. I'm not racked by guilt. I did not choose that socialization, but I got it. So I am responsible now for the outcome of that socialization. That's actually liberating. That's actually just transformative. That frees me from all of the denial and guilt and trying to pretend that's not happening. And it opens me up to get to work to try to continually identify and challenge that socialization. And guilt is just absolutely not useful. We are not in any way. And I would ask you as a Black man, do you enjoy white people who are just racked with guilt? I mean, is that useful for you in the struggle? It becomes an excuse for immobilization. Again, it's a natural part of coming to awareness, but you either need to move through it or you need to use it to motivate you. I said I was raised Catholic. Let's be honest. I'm motivated by guilt. If you want me to do anything, make me feel guilty, I'll do it. Not the healthiest thing, but you're going to get action out of me. So we always want to ask ourselves, well, how is this functioning? And if guilt is functioning to excuse inaction, then it's actually inauthentic. And you just have to get over it. You have to move through it. This is where women, for example, can use it as an entry point. Imagine trying to talk to men about patriarchy and sexism and having them say, but it makes me feel so bad. I just want to snap out of it. I need you, and I need you to be to use your position to talk to other men, and not wring your hands with guilt. I think it's disingenuous to say that my work wants people to feel guilty. Everything I've ever said in my book, I'm very clear about that not being my agenda or being useful. It's almost as if white people, we think we could do this work with no discomfort whatsoever. And so I'm going to put it like this. The status quo of this society is racism. And as a white person, every single day of my life, I live, love, play, work, create in a racist society in racial comfort. I am comfortable in a racist society. I mean, let's just pause and take that in. So we are not going to get where we need to go from a place of white comfort. And for far too long, everybody's had to tie themselves in knots, delivering the message just right so we don't unsettle white people. If you are uncomfortable with the term white supremacy, it's on you to get up to date. There's a reason why people who are educated and seen as thought leaders in this field use that term. And it's on you to learn about that, to understand how it's being used, to practice using it. It's not on us to use language that keeps you comfortable and inadvertently maintains the same dynamics where we're always catering to white people's needs. There are much softer approaches than mine. Go find those if they work better for you. I tend to be very direct. This is who I am, and it's very effective for lots of folks. So no one person can ever get this right by everybody. No way. So this is how I do it.
Well, great. That leads me to the next question is, how can white folks be better allies? Are there specific actions or strategies that you might recommend?
Well, the first thing is actually Google it like you would anything else you wanted to know, because plenty of Black folks and other folks have lists out there of how you can be allies, right? I think a couple of keys. Consider your learning never to have be finished. I'm going to do this on purpose. I'm going to look right into my camera. Just assume that I've been talking about you, white person, the entire time. Just assume that you really are the problem, just like I am. Just assume it really is you that sends your coworkers home exhausted, your coworkers of color, wondering whether they can talk to you about what you might be saying or doing that you don't realize you're saying or doing. And then try to figure out how it's you. So we're back to humility and lifelong learning. But I don't call myself an ally because that is, I am the last person who's qualified to determine that. That's for you, for example, Daryl, to determine if you think in any given moment, I'm actually behaving like an ally. And notice that in any given moment, so I'm not arrived. And two, I need to be accountable. So if I may, Daryl, what do you look for in white people? What do you see in white people that says to you, I think this one might be an ally?
Well, that's a great question. And folks who know me and talk to me all the time about this particular issue, I consider white allyship or a white ally is somebody who is committed to realigning resources and power, right? There's one thing to make a declaration, but it's certainly another thing to move to action, right? I think enough folks have not moved to action, and we've seen a lot of that here lately over the past year as, many institutions, organizations, and individuals have, made a declaration to whether it's to support the Black Lives Movement, to fight racial injustice. But, where the rubber meets the road is where you actually realign resources and power. And you touched on a lot of that. And when you were talking about kind of the intersection of whiteness and power. So an ally in my mind is somebody who realigns power and resources. I certainly considered you an ally, which is one reason why, we went after you to feature you during Black History Month, right? I did receive a little pushback because of that. But, our intent is to continue to elevate the voices, the diverse voices of people who we consider allies because of our diverse stakeholder group. So really, really thankful for you for spending this time with us today. Unfortunately, we have to come to a close. Dr. DiAngelo has another engagement, but I will just, offer you a last opportunity to provide some last comments before we close this call out.
Thank you. I know that one of the questions that's likely to come up, if it hasn't, I'm sorry about the box. It's going too fast. I'm not looking at it. Is this idea about monetizing? And people have said it quite bluntly. You're monetizing Black pain, and of course that's heartbreaking. I don't see myself as doing that. I make my living from anti-racist work, and I am accountable in how I donate. All of that, I have an accountability statement on my website. But again, I'm going to repeat it. I see myself as making my living from my 20 plus years of anti-racist work. And I want you to imagine a world where everyone's paycheck was tied to whether they integrated an anti-racist lens into their work, and they wouldn't be paid if they didn't do that. I think we'd probably end systemic racism. So why aren't we saying people who don't integrate an anti-racist framework, who don't every single day make their living by speaking up about racism, why are they not monetizing racism, right? So that's the way that I see it. I have a particular platform and voice, and it needs to be used. Otherwise, for me, that's white solidarity. And again, you can go to my webpage. There's an accountability statement. There's who I donate to. There's how much I donate. There's my pro bono work. It's all there.
Well, Dr. DiAngelo, we certainly thank you for joining us today. I also want to thank everybody who tuned in. I mean, as Teresa stated in her opening remarks, this is, undoubtedly one of the largest events we've ever had in our 104-year history. So whether you like it or not, Dr. DiAngelo, you're part of our history now.
Oh, thank you.
We are very thankful and grateful for our partners at Park Community Credit Union who co-developed this speaker series with us, and certainly would welcome any follow-up questions. Everybody here knows how to reach me. They have our email addresses and our website. Unfortunately, I can't announce who our next speaker is as of yet. We're still working on finalizing those contracts, but please be on the lookout for our next Beyond Buzzwords. And special thank you again to you, Dr. DiAngelo, wishing you much love and power, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks all.